All right, let's do this. Hey there guys, this is Glenn. Welcome back to the channel where we are slowly but surely trying to increase the production value of the content that we put out here. So I decided to mix it up a little bit this video. Wanted to hone in on the more traditional vlogging at your desk sort of format. I even got my audio recording on my audio editing software over here in the other monitor, so, you know, pretty high-end stuff. Anyway, let's get into it. So today in this video, I want to talk a little bit about something I've been thinking about earlier this week, and that is about the idea of being thick-skinned. If you do a quick Google search for the term thick-skinned, you will see it defined as insensitive to criticism or insults. And this is something I heard pretty early on in my voiceover journey, that you want to have thick skin, that you want to have a suit of armor before going into pursuing voiceover as a career. So voiceover can be a pretty vulnerable field when you get into it. You're really putting yourself out there with your work and your auditions, and you can face a lot of rejection along the way as you're trying to find the clients and projects to take on to make this whole operation sustainable. I think this is especially even more prominent in the more like creative and performance-based fields where you are your service and your product, whether that's your voice, your face, your actions, whatever. And you really want to be in a mental space where you can take criticism and rejection without beating yourself up too badly and overly internalizing it onto you. So obviously, when people talk about being thick-skinned and being resistant to that kind of stuff, it makes a lot of sense. And there are other obvious upsides that you can think about. Like when there's a person who really believes in themselves and doesn't let other people's negativities get them down, they can really get places in life. You look around at a lot of the big, financially successful and wealthy people out there, and a lot of them are pretty disagreeable, and they don't let other people push them around. Furthermore, when you have thick skin, you generally don't beat yourself up too much emotionally and psychologically, and you generally have a pretty comfortable sense of yourself. And believe me that life can already be pretty hard when you're not going out of your way to be your own worst critic. So clearly, there's all of that going on, and in turn, you have an understanding for why people talk about being thick-skinned generally as being a good attribute. But as I started thinking about this concept, I started to ask myself this question. Is it possible to take this too far? Can your skin ever be too thick? You know, in life, we often talk about pain as something that we want to stay away from and avoid and create a lifestyle where we don't have to deal too much with it. But if the body isn't able to exhibit pain, then that often ends up creating a lot more problems than it does preventing problems. There are actual medical conditions out there where these people have nerve disorders where their body's incapable of feeling pain. And it turns out to be a tremendous problem as it makes it very difficult for the body to regulate itself. And if somebody gets injured, then they don't know about it and they're not able to seek the appropriate help to get the care that they need because they don't see that there's even a problem to begin with. So going back to my voiceover example from earlier, if you ever get rejected in voiceover, either because a marketing attempt didn't go well or an audition didn't go through, as much as it sucks to get rejected, you kind of want to know why it happened. Maybe it's because you've been auditioning for the wrong roles. Maybe it's not a good fit for your voice or your style. Maybe you're not getting your auditions in early enough and the clients are picking other folks. Maybe you need to get better equipment. Maybe you need a better recording space or a microphone. Maybe you need to get some more acting training. Maybe there are other things that are going on with your delivery that you're just not mindful of. And if you're so caught up in this idea that you're just being thick-skinned and you're just going to take on whatever criticism comes your way without internalizing it, you might not be sensitive to those kind of changes that you need to make to actually make your voiceover operation successful. You also don't have to look too far to find, once again, these people who are really successful in life, and they built these massive egos up for themselves where it allows them to get to the places that they got to, but so often they can get so caught up in their egos that they drown out anything that would help them to be living a better life or making better choices. And a lot of times people are so caught up in it that they're just putting off their inevitable downfall. I mean, how many times have you heard about people who have been fantastic business owners, actors, singers, whatever, who seem like they were on top of the world, they were getting all the publicity, getting all the money, and then, you know, something happens where they have a divorce or they lose their money to an addiction or something happens, or if worse comes to worse, sometimes people end up taking their own lives. It's really, none of us are perfect and we all have things that we need to work on. But if we can't be honest with ourselves about that, we're never going to grow and we may end up just putting off things that lead to our inevitable downfall. And now I'm going to say something that might be a little bit controversial here. I believe that this idea about being too thickly skinned can even apply to criticism that you get from people who are genuinely trying to take you down, to the haters, to the people who have chips on their shoulders. Because as much as we like to, you know, dab on them haters, there's often situations where maybe even the haters know something that you don't. As much as it sucks to be getting feedback from people who genuinely have it out for you, sometimes even when their intention is to hurt you, They might be pointing out things that you yourself are not aware of that you could be working on to put yourself in a better situation. And once again, if you're so caught up in your mind where you're just not going to listen to criticism, you're not going to listen to people that, rip on you or have something against you, then you're cutting out your access to a lot of important information that you could internalize to actually be putting yourself on a much better path. So to wrap this all up in a nice little bow, I think the real key is that you want to be able to separate your performance from your sense of self, so that when you get criticism on your performance, you're not internalizing it. At the same time, you don't want to be so insensitive to that criticism that you don't have the opportunity to learn. So really, you want to have a good, healthy sense of yourself, completely independent of how your performance is and what you're doing and the way people respond to it. But you also want to be able to listen to what people are responding and saying about your performances, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow, that's how you can take things to improve the craft that you're putting out there and ultimately continue on this path that you decided to start on in the first place. So you can absolutely feel good about yourself, but also the sense that you can do better, and being open to the voices telling you specifically how you can go about doing that. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me today. As always, appreciate you guys tuning in, staying part of the conversation. Be putting out another video next week. Constantly, once again, working on slowly improving the production value and really seeing what we can make this channel up to be. Anyway, once again, have a great week. Take care. God bless.